Breaking tonight, exactly 2 weeks from tonight. Election results will be pouring in. I know. And the campaign that has broken every rule will just about be over. But in the meantime, one of Donald Trump's most trusted advisors is hinting at some surprises ahead of the final phase of the 2016 race. And that's where we begin this edition of the Kelly File. Welcome, everybody. I'm Megyn Kelly. Today, the two campaigns are barnstorming the key battleground state of Florida. Mr. Trump holding 5 events across the state. Hillary Clinton holding a single public event there, too. With its 29 electoral votes, the latest Real Clear Politics average shows Mrs. Clinton with roughly a 3-point edge on Mr. Trump in Florida. We have an extremely powerful lineup for you tonight to discuss election 2016. Republican vice presidential nominee Mike Pence is here, and we'll ask him about the surprises in store. We'll also be joined by former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, as well as by Hillary Clinton supporter General John Allen. But we begin tonight with our chief political correspondent, Campaign Carl Cameron, who filed this report from Tallahassee, Florida, just a short time ago.
Hi, Megyn. Donald Trump's wrapping up 3 days of campaigning in Florida, a state that he has acknowledged that he must win. And now he's got an entirely new closing argument. He had planned on it to be his contract with the American voter, repackaging all of his policy proposals. But the revelation that Obamacare premiums, the Affordable Care Act's costs, are going to go up next year has taken over his rhetoric. He's using it not just to go after health care and say that he'll repeal and replace Obamacare. He's also trying to wed Hillary Clinton to it, and he hopes to take her down.
As you know, it's just been announced that Americans are going to experience another massive double-digit spike in Obamacare premiums, including more than a 100% increase in the great state of Arizona. They're going up over 100%. Think of it. And everybody's going to be going up like that. We're going to repeal it, and we're going to replace it, and we're going to get you great health care at a fraction of the cost.
Earlier today in Sanford, Florida, the Secret Service metal detectors counted 15,000 people at his rally. And last night, he had 12,000 in Tampa. Trump's crowds are beginning to grow. That doesn't always mean that the poll numbers are going to shift. Mitt Romney got 60,000 in the last couple of weeks, and he lost to Barack Obama in 2012. But there is no question that Donald Trump sees momentum, he sees a surge in enthusiasm, and now he's got a new attack on health care that he thinks will carry him right to Election Day. Megyn?
Carl, thank you. Well, for his part, Vice Presidential candidate Mike Pence is headed to Utah, with critics suggesting that this trip signals trouble, since this is a state that has reliably voted Republican in every presidential contest since 1964. Trump advisor Rudy Giuliani, however, says not to worry. Trump still has a few surprises in store for us. Watch.
Did Donald Trump plan anything except for a series of inspiring rallies?
Yes.
What?
You'll see.
When will this happen?
We got a couple of surprises left.
October surprises?
Well, I call them
early November
surprises in the way that we're going to campaign to get our message out there, maybe in a little bit of a different way.
Okay.
And you'll see, and I think it'll be enormously effective.
Joining me now, Republican vice presidential candidate and running mate to Donald Trump, Governor Mike Pence. Governor, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Hey,
so
Megyn.
Can you give us any sort of a hint what that means? What kind of surprises we might be in store for?
Well, I think for many in the mainstream national media, the big surprise is going to come on November the 8th when Donald Trump is elected the 45th president of the United States. I got to tell you, across Ohio today and North Carolina yesterday, we're seeing incredible crowds coming out for Donald Trump. The enthusiasm that we see across this state, and frankly across the country, is like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime. So we're going to continue to carry that message forward about making America great again, rebuilding our military, reviving our economy, having a Supreme Court that upholds our Constitution, and I like our chances come Election Day.
But you know that the crowd sizes don't really mean that much. I mean, Mitt Romney had huge crowd sizes at this point back in 2012, and he lost handily to Barack Obama. In North Carolina, Trump is down 2.1. Mitt Romney won that state by 2.2 points. Trump is down in Arizona, a reliably red state, by 1.3. Mitt Romney won that state by 10 points. Trump only leads Texas, Missouri, South Carolina, your home state of Indiana, by single digits. Mitt Romney won all of those states by 10 points or more. Isn't it true you are behind in the polls right now?
Number one, Megyn, the only poll that counts is the one we're going to finish up come Election Day. But I got to tell you, I really do think that the pollsters and the pundits are missing something in this election.
Right now, the political prognosticators are almost uniformly predicting that the GOP is going to lose the Senate. And if the GOP loses both the White House and the Senate, you and I both know that Hillary Clinton's going to be able to get all of her confirmations right through, including Supreme Court justices, and there'll be virtually no check on those. I mean, should you start changing the message a little to try to preserve at least the Senate at this point?
Well, look, my message in North Carolina yesterday, Donald Trump's message in Naples on Sunday night, is that it's time for Republicans to come home.
Just tonight, we learned that General Colin Powell, a Republican, lifelong Republican, is not coming home. Now, he says he's going to vote for Hillary Clinton, a woman of whom he was very critical in those emails that were leaked. He's not listening to you. First of all, your reaction to General Powell going Democrat in this election?
It wouldn't be the first time I disagreed with General Powell. Look, I honor his service to the country in uniform. I honor his service as Secretary of State. But if memory serves, he supported Barack Obama 8 years ago. So I'm not really sure it's particularly newsworthy that he's supporting another Democrat for the White House, even after 8 years that's weakened America's place in the world, stifled America's economy. But he's entitled to his opinion.
So other than telling them to come on board, what can he do? What can you do?
Well, I think we could just talk about the issues. We can just talk about the platform. Look, there's no question that Republicans went through this. I mean, how many candidates were there in our primary? 100, 150 of them?
That's how it felt.
It was a rough. It was a rough and tumble primary, and so there's some of that left over. But look, the unifier in this election is that Republicans, many independents, and frankly many Democrats know that 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton style leadership has weakened America's place in the world, resulted in cutbacks in our military, stifled our economy. Obamacare is literally disintegrating before our eyes. You even have Bill Clinton calling it the craziest thing in the world.
Yep.
But Hillary Clinton says today that Donald Trump's going to rip up Obamacare, and she's absolutely right. We're going to repeal Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel.
Why is Trump out there blaming a rigged media? And you've pointed to media bias, and it exists. There's no question it exists. The media doesn't want Trump Pence to be elected. That's very clear. But they didn't want George W. Bush to be elected, and they certainly didn't want him to be reelected, and he was. So what? I mean, why not take some responsibility? Why doesn't Trump look at himself and say, you know what, I was consolidating my base, but now it's down at 80, and Mitt Romney had 50% of independents, and I only have 43. Why, you know, as Brit Hume likes to say, winners take responsibility, losers blame others. To try to blame these numbers entirely on the media being rigged is not real, is it?
Well, I think, you know, I hear that riff a little bit, that pointing out the overwhelming bias in the national media is somehow, making an excuse. I think he's just making an observation. I mean, Media Research Center just came out with a study of media coverage. It showed that since the conventions, I think the number was that Donald Trump had gotten significantly more coverage, and more than 90% of it had been negative. I mean,
well, that's
I think people out there know that
came out
media,
showing him saying he wants to grab women by the you-know-what. I mean, you know as well as I do, he does very controversial
things. Long before that.
But he does controversial things from the beginning, and in part there's been speculation about whether it's for attention, whether some of the things he says and does are to generate media attention, which you know as well as I do, he loves.
Megyn, I got to tell you, most of the people I'm out campaigning with know that it's been 2-on-1 from almost the beginning of this campaign, with the media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her. But the amazing thing is that we continue to see this movement growing, because the American people are talking to each other about the real issues in this campaign, not what the media is chasing after any given day of the week.
He's
this
talking
campaign,
about it.
and we're going to fight all the way to the finish.
Governor Pence, respectfully, and then I'll give you the floor. But Donald Trump went to Gettysburg this weekend to lay out this new agenda, you know, this contract with America, and he started it by saying he's going to sue all of the women who are accusing him. And you know as well as I do that those lawsuits will go nowhere. And you're telling me if he's the sitting president of the United States, he's going to start suing individual female citizens who have made these accusations?
Well, Megyn, look, everyone in this country is entitled to defend their own reputation and their own integrity, and that includes people that are running for president of the United States.
It's great to see you, Governor Pence. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Megyn.
All the best to you. Well, with some forecasters now suggesting that the Democrats may take control of the Senate on November 8th, we break down the numbers with the man who helped launch a Republican resurgence. Newt Gingrich joins us next. Plus, could one of the biggest names in sports be now considering a career in politics? Tim Tebow is live on the Kelly File tonight.
I think everything happens for a reason, and so I wouldn't change a thing, because I think I've just learned too much from the highs and the lows.
As we edge closer to Election Day, attention has increasingly turned to the down-ballot races. The big story now, can Republicans maintain control of the House and, in particular, the Senate? Today, the nonpartisan Cook Political Report released its new rankings, with Cook predicting Democrats will pick up 5 to 7 seats and will likely gain control of the chamber. In moments, we'll talk about it with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. But we begin tonight with Trace Gallagher reporting from our West Coast newsroom. Trace?
And Megyn, just like the old E.F. Hutton commercials, when Charlie Cook in his political report talk, people listen. And the reason Cook now says Democrats will pick up 5 to 7 seats in the Senate and regain control is that Republican senators in toss-up states can no longer run their own races because Donald Trump is drowning them out. The report says the slow leak in the GOP Senate balloon came the day the Access Hollywood tape went public. And trying to turn the tide with only 2 weeks left could prove difficult at best for 2 reasons. One, the Clinton campaign feels emboldened and is now pumping millions of dollars into the races of down-ballot candidates. And 2, early voting is underway in more than 30 states. And traditionally, Democrats perform better than Republicans in early voting. Experts say the GOP's best hope is to convince casual Republicans to go to the polls so Hillary Clinton doesn't walk into the White House with a blank check. In fact, voter turnout will likely be the difference in the battle for Harry Reid's Senate seat in Nevada, where former Nevada Attorney General and Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto is deadlocked with Nevada Republican Congressman Joe Heck. The fear for Republicans is that Hillary Clinton dominates the race along the eastern seaboard before the polls even close in the West, and some Republican voters in Nevada might then decide to opt out of voting. We should note that Republican incumbent Senators Kelly Ayotte in New Hampshire and Marco Rubio in Florida are also locked in do-or-die races, but both of them are still holding small leads. As for the House, Democrats would need to pick up 30 seats to regain control, but for now, even the most optimistic polls give them a net gain of just 10 to 18 seats. So it looks like the GOP holds the House. Megyn.
Trace, thank you. Joining us now with more, Newt Gingrich. He served as Speaker of the House. He's a Trump supporter and author of the book Treason. Great to see you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for being here. So
it's good to be back.
I mean, with Cook and many other nonpartisan independent pollsters now saying that the Senate is likely lost to the Republicans, what does that say? I mean, if Donald Trump loses this White House race and the Republicans lose the Senate, does that suggest that the Republicans nominated the wrong candidate at the top of their ticket?
The next 2 weeks are a contest of 2 parallel universes. I just listened to that report. First of all, I used to hang out with Charlie Cook when he would explain that Donald Trump was hopeless and would not get the nomination. I like Charlie. That doesn't mean he's infallible. But let's take the report we just got. Republicans are actually outvoting Democrats in Florida. They're outvoting Democrats in Pennsylvania. That's unprecedented. They've cut the Democratic lead.
You predict a win in Pennsylvania?
I think they might.
Really? You think Trump's going to win Pennsylvania?
Look, all I can report to you right now is they're outvoting the Democrats in early voting, which is also true in Florida, which is unprecedented.
But all of the polls in Pennsylvania have her winning.
What?
All of the polls in Pennsylvania have her ahead.
I know. I just told you we have 2 alternative universes right now. In Iowa, for example, the Democrats are 50,000 votes behind where they were with Barack Obama in turnout. The governor is very confident we're going to carry Iowa, which Obama carried last time. I can just carry you through case after case like this. In Minnesota, we're almost certainly going to win the congressional seat up around Duluth, which is a very Democratic area, but it deeply dislikes Hillary Clinton. and represent. Now,
but let me
you
just
start
ask
getting
you. Let me just ask you, because you say it's two alternate universes. I mean, these are sort of small examples of how he might be heading early voting and so on. But I'm telling you that the Fox News decision desk just moved Iowa, that you just mentioned, Indiana, 2nd Congressional District in Maine. All of them moved left, moved more likely to vote for Hillary Clinton. And in fact, all of the moves that have been on this map over the past 3 weeks by Larry Sabato, by Cook, by the Fox News decision desks, these are nonpartisan outlets that are just trying to call the electoral
not nonpartisan
scoreboard.
outlets. Every outlet you described is part of the establishment.
Fox News, really? Are we? I don't think so. And they've every state they've moved it to the left, towards Hillary. And you tell me whether that's all made up.
No, I think they're two alternative universes. You have a poll which suggests that she's going to get a Barack Obama turnout among African Americans. I don't think that's going to happen. You have a Washington Post ABC News poll where they took out 8% of the vote because they didn't like the way it voted. Look, I've been around long enough. I remember when the Detroit Liberal newspaper on the Sunday before the election said John Engler would lose by 14 points. He won the governorship that year. I don't take polls as seriously as people who've never run for office.
But your
I can tell you.
Your candidate loves them and has touted them from the beginning. And he's been behind in virtually every one out of the last 40 polls that we've seen over the past month. That's the reality.
Look, if you want to assume the election's over, skip the next 2 weeks and we can talk about the future.
I'm not assuming anything. I'm asking you whether you believe your candidate's behind based on these numbers and what it says about the down-ballot races.
I believe the odds are at least 1 in 3 and maybe better than that the difference in intensity and the difference in determination and the degree to which Hillary Clinton is clearly the most corrupt, dishonest person ever nominated by a party all mean that the odds are pretty good she's not going to win. Now, I actually believe that. This is not just because I'm for Donald Trump. I actually believe the American people
let me ask you about
sickened
that.
by this.
So let's assume she is corrupt, right? She was just as corrupt 3 weeks ago and 3 months ago. And she would have been corrupt and collapsing physically on September 11th of this year. And her poll numbers tanked. But then you know what happened. He had a rough first debate. He took the bait on Alicia Machado. He stayed in that trap for a week. The Access Hollywood tape came out, which was not produced by Hillary Clinton. That was Trump on camera talking about grabbing women.
Look, I just heard you go through this with Governor Pence. I get it. I know where you're coming from. But let me point out something to you.
Sure.
The 3 major networks spent 23 minutes attacking Donald Trump that night and 57 seconds on Hillary Clinton's secret speeches. You don't think this is a scale of bias worthy of Pravda and Izvestia? I mean, you want to know why Donald Trump's had a rough time?
If Trump is a sexual predator, that is...
He's not a sexual predator.
Okay, that's your opinion. I'm not taking a position on it.
You could not defend that statement.
I'm not
sick and tired of people like you using language that's inflammatory that's not true.
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker.
Donald
you have
Trump
no idea whether it's true or not. What we know is that there are at least...
Neither do you.
That's right, and I'm not taking a position on it, unlike
yes, you are. When you use the words, you took a position.
So what
I think
said
it's very
is
unfair of you to do that, Megyn.
Incorrect.
I think that is exactly the bias people are upset by.
I think that your defensiveness on this may speak volumes, sir.
No,
what I said
let me just
is...
suggest to you.
No. Let me make my point, and then I'll give you the floor. What I said is, if Trump is a sexual predator, then it's a big story. And what we saw on that tape was Trump himself saying that he likes to grab women by the genitals and kiss them against their will. That's what we saw. Then we saw 10 women come forward after he denied actually doing it at a debate to say that was untrue. He did it to me. He did it to me. We saw reporters. We saw people who had worked with him, people from Apprentice, and so on and so forth. He denies it all, which is his right. We don't know what the truth is. My point to you is, as a media story, we don't get to say the 10 women are lying. We have to cover that story, sir.
Sure. Okay, so it's worth 23 minutes of the 3 networks to cover that story. And Hillary Clinton, in a secret speech in Brazil to a bank that pays her $225,000, saying her dream is an open border where 600 million people could come to America. That's not worth covering.
That is worth covering.
You want to go back through the tapes of your show recently? You are fascinated with sex, and you don't care about public policy.
Me?
Now, that's
really?
what I get out of watching you tonight.
You know what, Mr. Speaker? I'm not fascinated by sex, but I am fascinated by the protection of women and understanding what we're getting in the Oval Office. And I think the American voters would like to know.
And therefore, we're going to send Bill Clinton back to the East Wing because, after all, you are worried about sexual predators.
Yeah, listen, it's not about me. It's about the women and men of America. And the poll numbers show us that the women of America in particular are very concerned about these allegations and in large part believe that they are a real issue. And
do you want to comment?
Do you want to comment
on whether the Clinton? Do you want to comment on whether the Clinton ticket has a relationship to a sexual predator?
We on the Kelly File have covered that story as well, sir. I will tell you
I
the
just want to
polls.
hear you use the words. I want to hear you use the words. Bill Clinton, sexual predator. I dare you. Say Bill Clinton, sexual predator.
Mr. Speaker,
disbarred by the
Arkansas
bar. Disbarred by the Arkansas bar. $850,000 penalty.
Excuse me, sir. We on the Kelly File have covered the Clinton matter as well. We've hosted Kathleen Willey. We've covered the examples of him being accused as well, but he's not on the ticket. And the polls also show that the American public is less interested in the deeds of Hillary Clinton's husband than they are in the deeds of the man who asks us to make him president, Donald Trump. We're going to have to leave it at that, and you can take your anger issues and spend some time working on them, Mr. Speaker. Thanks for being here.
And you too. You too.
So we're taking your thoughts on that. Facebook.com/The Kelly File. As we get into the home stretch, a high-ranking retired commander is taking part in a brand new ad for Hillary Clinton. Four-star General John Allen is here next to explain why he made the decision he did. Plus, a new WikiLeaks dump of Clinton emails is creating serious new questions about whether President Obama lied to the American people about what he knew and when.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State?
Breaking tonight with 2016 entering the home stretch, the former military commander who made big news at the Democratic National Convention has surfaced again. In a brand new political ad, Distinguished General John Allen says when it comes to keeping Americans safe, the choice is clear.
Power to ultimately defeat this threat and to keep us safe.
Joining me now in a Kelly File exclusive, retired four-star Marine General John Allen. General, great to see you. Thank you very much for being here.
And good evening, Megyn.
So this is a man who used to head CENTCOM, so our viewers know. He used to run the war in Afghanistan and the fight against ISIS for a time. So you've had some experience fighting the enemy. And I want to ask you, because it is extraordinary to see a general like you come out and get political. What made you do it?
Well, Megyn, I spent a lot of time thinking about it. It wasn't an easy decision. It's less about being political than it is, or it was, and remains about expressing my very clear support for the person I believe utterly should be the next commander-in-chief. I was very concerned about the rhetoric that we were hearing in the campaign. I remain concerned about the rhetoric that we hear in the campaign, about the potential that we could see American forces being used for torture or for carpet bombing or to assassinate the families of alleged terror victims or secure the illegal seizure of Iraqi oil. That kind of rhetoric, I believed, had to be challenged, and it had to be challenged publicly. So challenging that rhetoric, but also expressing unambiguously my belief that Secretary Clinton should be the next commander-in-chief were important to me.
Why do you think that's so bad? I mean, let me just ask you about the torture in particular, right? Because I think a lot of people look back at what happened during the Bush administration and are horrified by the enhanced interrogation techniques, but there are a lot of people who defend him, saying they did work and they did get information out of people like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And those very same people say, go Trump, on his promise to bring those techniques back.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we don't know how well torture works. I think what we do know is that people will say anything to stop the pain, and we know that very well. We know that clearly. We know that from experience. So the idea that the employment of systematic torture ought to be a part of the repertoire that we have with respect to how we handle and treat detainees, I think is not part of who we are. It hasn't proven itself to be that valuable as a technique that we should even consider compromising our values or our standards to do it. But also, let me make something really very clear. If it were ever to be believed that we systematically tortured those that we detained, we have no reason, we would have no reason to believe that our troops, if ever taken prisoner, would be treated in any other way than that they would be horribly tortured themselves.
What about...
So we need to be thinking about this in a very clear-eyed way.
Let's talk about Hillary Clinton as a potential commander-in-chief. She does have a foreign policy record, unlike Trump, who's never held public office before. And it's far from perfect. Let's put it that way. She supported, what we did in Libya, which has led to disastrous results by pretty much any measure. She was behind the Iran deal, which has been very controversial. And certainly she underestimated the security threat in Benghazi, Libya, as a separate but somewhat related matter, leading to the death of 4 Americans on September 11th of 2011. So how can you, as a general serving in the positions you have, support her for commander-in-chief?
Well, I think she's responded to many of those concerns, particularly Benghazi. I saw her in action when I was a commander in Afghanistan. She was the Secretary of State. We worked closely on a number of issues. I saw her in action in the sit room. I saw her in action in Kabul when she would visit our ambassador and would spend time with me. I spent time with her individually as the commander. She's calm. She understands international relations. She understands that the influence of America is best exerted through our relationships overseas and through our alliances and our partnerships.
Well, what about Trump and Putin? He says he understands that too. And, we've seen Putin, I don't know if he likes Trump. He's complimented him. And you tell me why Putin is doing that.
I don't know that Putin has complimented him. In fact, I believe that Putin has said that he hadn't complimented him. So I'm not clear necessarily on your question, but I don't see that there is a value in the nature of the relationship that I have seen be described between Mr. Trump and Putin.
How closely do you think the Russians, and Putin in particular, are watching our election?
Very, very closely, Megyn. Look, there are great forces at work here. One of the great threats, I think, to Russia is the solidarity of the European Union. They're deeply concerned about the capacity of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which has been the stalwart alliance on which so much of the transatlantic alliance, so much of the security of Western Europe, Southern Europe, has rested for so many years. And the solidity, or the solidarity of those organizations are of great interest to him. And when one of the 2 principal candidates for the President of the United States in fact cheerleads the dissolution of the EU or would talk about not being willing to honor Article 5 of the NATO Charter, we've got some real reason for Putin to want to see a particular individual in the Oval Office.
Last question, because I got to go. But do they study? He's a former KGB guy, Putin. Do they study? Do you think he's studying Trump and studying Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, there's no question about that. They've got the voice prints. They can tell when someone is agitated. They can tell when someone is angry. They can tell when someone is telling the truth or not telling the truth. And all of this is to ensure that in a crisis, they can push the buttons that they think they need to in order for that crisis to go their way. Michael Morell, the former deputy director of the CIA, wrote an excellent piece on this. And I think that it's worth our always being conscious that the Russians are going to watch every aspect of this. They're quite good at it. They're quite expert at this, at understanding people's personalities, and I think that that's something we should take into account.
Fascinating. General Allen, thanks for being here, and thanks for your service.
Thank you, Megyn. God bless. Out here.
New controversy bubbling up for Hillary Clinton and the White House today, as the latest WikiLeaks dump suggests President Obama may have lied in his initial comments about Hillary Clinton's private email server and private email. Former President Bush speechwriter Mark Thiessen and Matt Bennett, a former aide to President Clinton, are next on that. Plus, could one of the biggest names in sports be now considering a career in politics? Tim Tebow is live on the Kelly File in moments.
With next AM 24-hour.
Developing tonight, the White House is now dealing with some awkward new questions about Hillary Clinton's email scandal and whether President Obama lied to the American people about what he knew. Remember, it was back in 2015, not long after the story broke, when CBS News had a chance to press the White House about the Clinton controversy.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State.
At the same time, everybody else learned it through news reports.
But now we're seeing hacked emails from WikiLeaks that show Team Clinton was stunned by that response, exchanging emails suggesting President Obama was not being truthful and about how this needed, quote, cleaning up. Ed Henry is our chief national correspondent. Ed?
Good evening, Megyn. Tonight, White House spokesman Josh Earnest is stressing the president never said he did not trade emails with Hillary Clinton. He just did not know the details about her server. But that is not how top Clinton advisor Cheryl Mills read the president's interview with CBS. She appeared to freak out in real time, firing off an email declaring, quote, we need to clean this up. He has emails from her. They do not say state.gov. Meaning Mills, who was chief of staff of the State Department, knew Clinton and the president had exchanged work emails on her personal email address. So his answer set off alarm bells. Mills read it to mean he had not told the whole truth, and gasoline could be poured on the Clinton email fire. Other new emails also show infighting among Clinton advisors after the New York Times revealed the existence of the server in 2015, with liberal activist Neera Tanden writing to John Podesta and teeing off on Mills by saying, quote, this is a Cheryl special. Why didn't they get this stuff out like 18 months ago? So crazy. Podesta agreed, replying, unbelievable. I guess I know the answer, concluded Tanden. They wanted to get away with it. Yet another batch of notes show a Clinton advisor revealed that the candidate had trust issues with her own staff because of leaks about the email scandal. Podesta may have summed all of this up by calling the controversy a hot mess. Megyn.
Ed Henry, thank you. Joining me now, Mark Thiessen, Fox News contributor and former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush, and Matt Bennett, a former deputy assistant to President Clinton. Good to see you both. So,
good to see you, Megyn.
I mean, Mark, you know, when you say the word lie, it means there's a consciousness of deception. You know, at a minimum, the president said something that was incorrect. That much we know. How do you get to lie?
Well, because if you look at it's important to look at the question that he was asked. So he was not asked, when did you learn that Hillary Clinton had a private unsecured server in her bathroom? He was asked by CBS News, quote, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State? And he said, I learned it from the media. That is plain untrue, because we now know that he was emailing with her on an email system outside the U.S. Outside of the U.S. government. Her email did not say state.gov. It didn't even say Gmail or Hotmail. It said ClintonMail.com. So did he not notice that? Cheryl Mills noticed that. That's why she said we need to clean this up, which meant cover up the fact that there were emails between them, which they did successfully until this September.
Matt, why are you shaking your head no?
Look, Megyn, Mark doesn't know anything about what the president knows or whether he was being untruthful, because what he doesn't know is whether the president noticed the URL that the email from Hillary originated from. I don't notice people's URLs. Most people, I think, don't, and surely the president, one of the busiest people on the planet, doesn't notice. That is a staff thing to worry about.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Okay, so point taken, but let me ask you, Matt. The facts seem to be that our Secretary of State and our President were having a little chat via email on an unsecure server via her private email address, which is outrageous, and he, in your scenario, doesn't even know. So what's to stop him from saying something he shouldn't be saying? And does that not underscore the grossly irresponsible nature of her decision and, under your theory, her lack of disclosure of it in talking to people like the president?
Look, there is no question that she made a mistake, and she has said that a million times, including in the last debate. She should not have had a personal server. It was a mistake, but we don't know anything about what the president was paying attention to as it relates to the emails coming from Secretary Clinton.
Well, if he didn't pay attention to it, Mark, is that not on her?
It said ClintonMail.com.
He had too much faith in her.
It said ClintonMail.com. It's not hard to see. It's not a URL. It's the email. It's in every American who's read an email.
Either he saw it and he knew, or he didn't see it. And the reason he didn't know is because his Secretary of State didn't call it to his attention that she wasn't writing from where she ought to have been.
And Cheryl Mills knew, and Cheryl Mills noticed it, and so she said, we need to clean this up. He has emails that don't say state.gov. Now, what did she mean by clean this up? She meant cover up the fact that they had been emailing.
Well, no,
Why did they want to cover up the
fact
fact that they had been emailing? Because that would make him complicit in her misconduct. It would make him complicit in any breaches of security that came out.
We'll ponder that over the break because it's a short segment. But thanks for being here. See you guys.
Thanks.
Tim Tebow's next.
See you, Meg.
As well. Joining us now, Tim Tebow, author of the new book, Shaken, Discovering Your True Identity in the Midst of Life's Storms. Tim, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Of course, Megan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. So let's just start with, so you used to, I'm not a sports person, so forgive me. You played football. It went great, and then it went not as great. And now you've decided to play baseball, and you're in the minor leagues for the Mets. And how does that happen? Were you good at both in high school? How did you get to that point?
Well, first of all, that's a great way to sum it up. Yeah, baseball was something I did my whole life, and I honestly almost went pro out of high school, but I chose the University of Florida, more because Mom wanted me to get an education, but I loved both. And but baseball was something that has been with me ever since. And when football didn't necessarily pan out how maybe I thought or hoped it would, and baseball was always with me. And it was something that I had been thinking about for a couple years, and even had to convince some people on my own team that I could do it. And but now I'm out pursuing it and loving it and having so much fun.
See, I get it. Like, you like to hit things and you like to throw things. So you've chosen two good sports for you. But
you got it, Megan. You got it.
What I read about the book is actually very inspirational because, I mean, I think our viewers certainly know you're a man of faith and you're a man who loved football and played it, but you've had failures, as I read. You were let go by 4 NFL teams in 5 years after having such a storied beginning to your career. How do you deal with that? How do you get through those kinds of challenges and failures?
Well, that's what this book is all about. It's about handling the lows. You know, Megan, I've been blessed to go through some highs. But I think going through the lows is something, honestly, I am so thankful for now, too, because I feel like there's so many people that life hits them right in the face and they have to go through a lot of lows. And it really gives me the opportunity to relate to a lot of people. And that's what this book is written for. It's written for people that have gone through lows or about to go through lows or are going through lows. And it's to encourage them that their life matters, that they're important, to realize the purpose that they have in their life. And that was really the heart that I had behind this for the last year and a half or so, of really trying to write to young people to encourage them about how much they matter, how they can have a foundation that is bigger than just what they do. It's who they are, more importantly, whose they are. And so that's really what this book is about.
Is it scary for you to, having not made it in your first chosen profession, to be trying again in what is sort of a brand new one?
Not really. I think a couple things. One, perfect love casts out all fear. And two, when you're doing something for the fun of it, for the passion for it, and you're really giving it everything you got, what is success and failure? Success to me is pursuing and playing something that I love every single day, and the results will take care of itself. But at least I can look back 20, 30 years from now and say, hey, I did everything I possibly could for the passions that I have and what I loved and what was in my heart, rather than being scared of what critics or naysayers or even failing, in stopping because of that. Because I think, unfortunately, in today's society, so many people do that because we're afraid of what other people are going to think.
That's right. Amen to that, by the way. But I have to ask you whether there might be politics in your future. First of all, quickly, were you asked to speak at the RNC this past summer?
I was.
And you declined. So was that why? Why didn't you do it?
Well, for me, I really try to go after what is on my heart, what I'm passionate about at the moment, and politics could be something in my future one day. For me, my goal has always been to make a difference in the biggest way possible, to be able to change as many lives as possible, to be able to encourage as many lives as possible. And right now, I don't feel like that's in politics. But if one day I feel like that's where I'm called to go, then that's...
They were book Shaken.
Thank you so much, Megan. And good luck with your book. I hear it's coming out soon, too.
That's right. November night, and the book comes out 3 weeks from tonight. And I can't wait to share it with you. BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com now. Pre-order. Thank you. See you tomorrow night, 9.